Hello, Carmen Costigan here, and I am very excited to be speaking today with Peter Camphin. Welcome, Peter.
Very excited to be here too, Carmen, yeah.
Peter has been involved in the property investment industry for how many years?
Well, I've been in real estate for over 40 years now.
Wow.
So both as a, property manager, salesperson, franchisee, and then obviously more recently as a franchisor, not in Queensland, but
yes.
for Ray White.
Yes, so you understand the journey of the property manager then?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was where I started the career and I just loved it. And it just evolved so much over that time. And you know, we were speaking earlier on about how the expectations on property managers today is much higher than it's ever been.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and, yes. Which is, I think, a good thing as well, because there's that higher level of expectation, and that should raise the standards across the industry. But it's a lot more than just collecting the rent and following up on arrears now, isn't it?
And now looking at it, I mean, now involved in the finance side of the company business, which is loan market up here in Queensland, is that the love affair that Australians have with investment in property has always been there. It's continuing strongly today, probably always, but that's one of the major ways that we all grow our wealth.
Absolutely.
And property managers need to see their role as broader than just tenants in and out, routine inspections, collecting rent, and looking after repairs and maintenance. It's so much more than that, because investors want good advice about what it is that they're doing, particularly on the return on their investment,
Yeah, so can we talk a little bit about that, because I find sometimes that the property managers struggle with how to have those conversations with their landlords. They don't want to feel like they're selling products per se, but what they're actually doing is providing that better return and providing that better service.
So investors in property fundamentally want two things. They want capital appreciation on the property that they've bought, so over a period of time, and residential investment's not a 12-month, 2-year thing. It's 10 years plus. Yes. Because the cycle of the property industry, or the property market, the tide comes in and we all do really well, and the tide goes out. So it does that, time and time again over generally between 7 to 10 years, depending on conditions. And there are other anomalies that affect it, whether it's mining or overseas investment, but fundamentally it goes in and out. So they want to make sure that they grow the capital gain inside and the equity inside their properties. So that's the first major thing that they want. The second one is that they want to have good cash flow, because they want tenants paying as much as they possibly can, because most landlords think that the property manager pays their mortgage vicariously through the tenant. Definitely. And that's how they see it.
Yeah, that's true.
And they want to make sure there's no vacancy, they're always paid on time, they look after it so that when the time comes to sell it, that they're going to make some money on it.
Definitely.
So they're about investing in, whether it's in shares or property. They want to see capital appreciation and return whilst they're there. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that property managers have got to provide to them.
So in terms of that, how can we go from being property managers to offering property services in our business?
Well, it's a good question, because most property managers think, and I don't like calling property managers process workers, but there's a lot of process-driven tasks within inside the roles that they do, and they're so important that they're done effectively and efficiently. But from a landlord's perspective, an investor's perspective, how can I maximise tax benefits, depreciation schedules? How can I get my costs down? The most significant cost in owning an investment property for the majority of people in Australia is servicing the debt on their mortgage.
Absolutely.
And 0.5%, 1% locking in. Should we be locking in rates? Shouldn't we lock in rates? Yeah. It's interesting, a survey of over 5 different rent rolls that we looked at, 68% of people who own investment properties longer than 3 years have not had a review on their mortgage, and most of them are paying between 1% and 2% more than they should.
Which actually equates to quite a big dollar value.
Oh, it does. I mean, look, if the average investment property's got a loan on it for 400,000, well, 1%'s 4,000 a year, 2%'s 8,000 a year, and that has a significant effect on the return on the investment for the landlord investor.
Absolutely.
Now, property managers don't self-finance, but brokers can have that conversation and review it very, very quickly. One of the other benefits to that is that if equity has grown inside the property over the period of time they've owned it, well, it's a fair chance that they'll be able to increase their redraw facility.
Yes.
Because we have things like major repairs that happen, and often landlords aren't in a position to pay for them. So having a relationship between a financial consultant or a mortgage broker and a property manager to look at ways in which we can improve the return on the investment, and that's just simply reduce the costs, increase the income.
Yes.
Tax benefits involved in that as well.
Yes.
That's where we make a difference, and that's the competency and the expectation that people have from investment managers that's what our property managers are. They're investment managers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in terms of that, once again, that improves your ability in the role that you perform as well. So if there were, how often would you ask the question to a particular landlord?
Look, that should be part of an annual review to do all that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know how many of our property managers know whether the landlords have all got depreciation schedules in the portfolios they manage. We should know
not
that.
everybody.
Well, we should know that.
Yes,
I mean,
definitely.
the depreciation schedule is just BMT lectures across the world about the advantages, and as part of the government allows us to do this to encourage investment into properties.
Yes.
So that's part of what we do.
Yeah.
So there's an expectation that tenants need to be given some hope that they can buy their own home.
Yes.
It's really important that tenants pay their rent on time, because if they default on it and then they try to go get a mortgage, that'll come up under their credit rating. It'll be known if they've defaulted. So you want to buy a home, tenant, and you want to do that in the next 12 months, talk to a broker, see how much deposit you need. And paying your rent means that you're setting yourself a history of savings plan, which can be attributed to getting a mortgage. Most tenants don't know that.
Absolutely not, and I don't think there's enough conversations around that. So that would provide an amazing tenant induction if you were having those educated discussions from day one, because that really shows you are a property services business, which then feeds into the sales department, obviously.
Of course.
Because then you have a potential pool of buyers there as well. So I love how it all fits in together like the puzzle. The question would be for the property manager, for example, if I was picking up the phone speaking to, Mr. Smith today, and I wanted to have that conversation about where he's at with his mortgage, how could I word it simply? Because I know a lot of property managers get a little bit stuck on this conversation.
See, if the level of service that we provide today is not going to be good enough in the next 2 years.
That's 100%, yes.
It's a bit like when you go to a hotel for the first time and you really love it and it's just a great experience and you want to relive the holiday, so you go back there again a second time and a third time. It's never quite as good as the first time,
True.
So the service that you're offering today is, but when you ask an unexpected question, so a property manager does a routine inspection and rings the landlord.
Yes.
Talks about the condition of the property, how the tenants are looking after it, updates on when the leases expire, just any information, and simply asks the question of the landlord, while I've got you, would you like us to see if we can improve the return on your investment for you? Well, that's a really surprising question for a landlord to hear from a property manager. And that just lifts it up again. So how do we do that? Well, we just know that your most significant cost in owning this is servicing the debt on your mortgage. 9 times out of 10 it is.
Yes.
We want to make sure that you're getting the very best rate. We want to make sure you've got an up-to-date depreciation schedule in place. We want to make sure you're claiming everything that's possible of an expense back through your tax so you can get full tax benefits on the investment. They're the sorts of discussions we've got to have.
Yes.
And preventative maintenance, we need to invest in, we've got to repaint it, we've got to do the gardens, we've got to keep it up to speed so that it maintains its value.
And in terms of that, how can they then close it? Because rather than leave it as an open conversation to say, have a think about it and let me know, which we don't know, how can we then steer that conversation to try to get some action to happen?
Sure. If people are receptive to the idea of trying, well, how can you do that? How do you improve the return on my investment? So, but the first thing we start with is that we just know that the most significant cost for you is servicing the debt. So what I'd like to do is to get Carmen, our internal mortgage consultant, to give you a call and just see if we can refresh the rate on your loan. That's the first thing that we can do.
I love that. Really clear, really simple call to action.
Yeah. So I don't want health checks on mortgages. It's refreshing loans.
Yes.
And it's showing that you're interested beyond tenant in and out, because when the property manager's name comes up on the phone, you know what the landlord's thinking.
How much is this call going to cost me?
Exactly. So we want to move away from that, you know, we want to move away from that. So we should be let's get an appraisal, see if it has grown in value.
Yes.
Give that to the mortgage broker, see if we can increase the redraw facility, increase your equity.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can drop the cost of it. If you've got to redraw and you reduce your costs and your interest rates, well, it's not going to cost you any more if you take some out to fix the property up.
Perfect.
So they're the sorts of things that I think are expected now.
Yes.
And having that relationship, and also asset protection. You know, you think about insurance on some of these properties, and with some of the problems that we're having, it's not in all areas, but we've got activities being conducted by tenants with inside properties that could have a dramatic effect on the value of the properties.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you know, we're talking about meth labs and all those different sorts of things that happen. That's just a reality of life. But we want to make sure that our landlords are properly protected, personally and their asset. So property managers don't really go to that next level and think about that sort of thing. So now we have access to financial planners that can help that. So we can introduce them to make sure they are protected, personally and in an asset finance.
Great. And what I love about this is we all know that it's a very competitive marketplace these days, and sometimes people are surprised when they get a termination letter from one of their clients that they thought there was no issue with. But how hard would it be for that to happen if you were providing this full property services business and you were seen as that trusted advisor and you were the person that could refer them to whoever they needed at a particular time? I dare say your actual asset of the rent roll from a principal's point of view will be far more protected because of the level of skill and care taken by the team. So that's where I see a really clear advantage in terms of from the business.
It does, and it places the consumer or the customer in the centre of a blended experience, and not just property management only in its basic services. It's a broader service plus ancillary services of finance and advice on the side. And that's what we need to do. We need to diversify the offering that we've got, because if we don't, then they will be questioning about our fee. And continue to do that, and they do that all the time, and fees are declining. So we've got to provide a higher level of expectation to maintain the level of fee that we're asking.
Exactly.
So that's what I think we need to do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Peter.
It's a pleasure.
Just quickly, in terms of the Link program that's coming up in October, if you could just briefly explain how that works, now that we know how to have those conversations.
So Link is an awareness program which we do every year between all the various components of people who work inside the group, the Raywat group. Real estate businesses, finance businesses, insurance and personal advising and financial services all work together to provide a blended, more comprehensive level of service back to the client.
Excellent.
We see, and even today, we see the main real estate portals are all now getting into finance aggregation, which we've been doing for 25 years. So that's at the very sharp end of what they're doing in developing their businesses. So they can see that they're offering a blended experience as well. And that probably won't be the end of it. There'll be other services that will come on as well. So we need to keep pace with this, because if we don't accept the fact that we need to broaden, we change our mindset that we're not just a real estate business that does sales and property management. If we don't make that change in the way we look at it and our behaviour, well, then we're probably going to get what we deserve. But if we do, we really will get what we deserve, won't we?
Which is what we want.
Which is exactly what we want,
So very exciting.
So Link's a program where we inter-refer between one another to give a more extensive experience to the client.
Absolutely.
And presents opportunities for both property managers and for agents and brokers, and so it goes on. So that's what Link's about.
Excellent, and we have more information on that which we can obviously share with you. Thank you so much, Peter Camphin. Fantastic education, and hope that was helpful to you.
Good luck.
And good luck with Link, everybody.
Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you.
Is that all right? Oh, it's okay.